The players came back over, Christopher thumping Mr. Goldberg on the back and congratulating him on a well-played game. "Great game," he announced to everyone. "Don't think we could have asked for a more beautiful afternoon." Mr. Goldberg added. "Yeah, and that pig, Mrs. Goldberg said, licking the tips of her fingers. She looked at me kind of odd and made me wonder if she and Ma knew about the pipe too. I was sure they hadn't seen, I mean we were real careful, but then again. Ma patted her big belly and said, "I think the twins enjoyed them most." "Twins?" Christopher shouted as he was sitting down next to Megjin. He was so shocked that he missed the lawn chair and fell over backward. Everyone laughed so hard. Pa, still laughing at Christopher, said, "Of course your Ma isn't having twins," and then turning to Ma he asked with concern, "You're not having twins, right?" He then looked at Doc Wilson, "Tell her she can't have twins." "Oh dear, you're so funny," Ma said dryly. Benjamin made the grossest comment, "I bet the baby comes out covered in barbecue sauce," and then laughed. You should have seen Mrs. Goldberg's face. I thought she was going to be sick right then and there. As Pa was heading for the lawn chair next to Ma, he reached down and with one hand snatched Benjamin off the ground and dropped him on his lap after he was seated. Benjamin giggled with joy. "Hey, that was fun." Ma said, "Oh honey, don't get him all sickly again." Pa poked Benjamin in the nose with a single finger and jokingly said, "You puke on me again and I'll tan your hide and hang it on the back of the barn next to your little brother." I ain't sure if Benjamin was acting or if he forgot that quickly about the pipe, but at any rate he pushed PA's hand away from his nose and cuddled up to Pa with his head nuzzled under PA's chin. It took nearly a full minute before Benjamin rose back up and squealed, "I ain't got a younger brother." Catherine laughed, "Took him long enough." The suspense was getting to Nugget and he was beginning to crack. He was sitting closet to Pa and began to giggle quietly. Pa tickled Nugget's ribs with the toe of his boot and said, "How about I cover you in barbecue sauce and drop on you in pig pin?" To which Bassett replied, "No, they still wouldn't eat something that's as ugly as him." Nugget sprang up and launched himself at Bassett, but Mr. Goldberg caught him in mid-air, spun him like a baton before tossing him over to Christopher. "Don't give him to me, I don't want him. He smells like barbecue sauce and grape Kool-Aid," Christopher teased. Nugget scrambled away from Christopher and sat back down on the ground, this time on my other side away from PA's foot and everyone else's reach. While all this was going on, those of us involved in the conspiracy were watching Bassett out of the corner of our eyes. I thought Vincent Lee had given us away when Bassett reached for his pipe and Vincent Lee gasped with anticipation. Half a dozen pairs of eyes watched him intently. Not a one of us so much as giggled or made a peep to give Bassett any clue that he was about to be pranked. My legs began to tremble with expectancy, and a good deal of suspense was caused by the fact that none of us knew just how he was going to react. Out of consideration of Ma and the baby, Bassett walked over to the furthest tree, about 20 feet downwind, before he struck the match. He held the flame over the bowl and sucked. The tobacco on top ignited and glowed, and Bassett's head was enveloped in a cloud of blue smoke. "Ah," he sighed, blowing smoke through his nostrils. "There's nothing like a good pipe after a good meal and a good game of horseshoes." Still we waited. We could hardly bear the suspense. Megjin, who evidently knew what we'd done, couldn't bear it at all and asked with superb innocence, "What sort of tobacco do you put in that thing?" "Captain Black." Bassett answered proudly, "It's the best there is. Folks will smoke all sorts of disgusting scented tobaccos, but not me." "I didn't know they had different flavors," Megjin went on. "When I glanced over at Ma, she looked like she was about to bust at any second. I knew for sure then that they had seen us and seemed to be enjoying it as much as we were. I knew she felt it was exciting and funny at the same time." "Oh yes, of course they do," Bassett said, giving his pipe another puff. "All tobaccos are dissimilar to one with a discerning palate. Captain Black is refreshing and nothing short of breathtaking." Bassett was yapping on, but that didn't much matter, 'cause I wasn't really listening to him. I was just watching and waiting for him to take another puff or two. Connie had come over, settled beside me, putting her arm around my shoulders and snuggling her cheek against mine. I was so keyed in on Bassett that I forgot she was beside me, so when she whispered into my ear, "Do you need changed?" I jumped, cause her breath tickled the inside of my ear. I shrugged her off with the jerk of my shoulder and whispered, "Not now." And then Bassett lifted the pipe to his lips once more, and all of a sudden he let go a howl and began to jump around like his britches were on fire. His pipe shot from his mouth and landed a couple yards away. Bassett began to cough and thump his chest, all the while still jumping up and down like an overgrown bunny. His face was all screwed up like he was trying to poop out a sharp pointy rock or something. "What intonation?" Doc Wilson shouted and rushed over to offer aid by thumping him on the back. I don't know what thumping him like that was supposed to do, but from the look of it, it seemed to just make things worse. The whole lot of us stared at Bassett spellbound and about to burst. Bassett somehow found the ability to cry out, "I'm on fire inside," before sputtering into a fit of coughing. Pa musta known something was up, cause he went over, picked up the pipe and sniffed it. Deep breaths, Doc Wilson said over Bassett's coughing. Bassett fell against the tree and breathed in deep breaths of autumn air, and in another minute or so he was on the mend. "What on earth caused all that?" Doc Wilson asked. "Think I know," Pa said, looking right at us and holding up the pipe. "What was in my pipe?" Bassett asked, going over and snatching it away from Pa. He tapped the contents out and sniffed. "Leaves," he said, looking at Nugget. Nugget squealed with delight, he's figured it out. "Run." Well, seeing how sickly Benjamin, Vincent Lee, and I had been, and the fact that we'd not had a decent meal in nearly a week's time, we were in no shape to walk, let alone run. Like a fox after a squall, Bassett took off after Nugget. "Run, Nugget, RUUUNNNN," I shouted. Of course Bassett didn't catch Nugget. He was still suffering from sucking down the smoke from them leaves to try running too much. Before Bassett came back over, Ma suggested we head back up to our room to rest, and we sure didn't waste no time at all getting the heck out of there. All the way into the house we were laughing and falling all over each other. Not long after, Nugget came storming up the stairs and into our room. "Hide me," he cried, and that's just what we did. Bassett came in about the time the three of us had gotten into bed. "Did he come in here?" he asked, looking like he wanted Nugget's head on a plate. We innocently shook our heads, and from halfway down the steps we heard him call out, "You got to sleep sometime, you little." To keep Bassett from getting Nugget, I asked Ma and Pa if Nugget could sleep over, and they said yes. Mr. Goldberg thought it was probably a good idea and laughed when he said to Nugget, "Top notch show, son." "Top notch,"